Continuing my walkthrough of the Serge Lutens fragrances that I have, today we'll talk about the bell jars. I anticipate this will be a short video because I only have a few, and the ones that I do have are some of the more straightforward and simple compositions. So the first one I ever purchased, and actually the first Lutens I ever purchased, is Encens et Lavande. I remember trying this at the old location of the store Edis de Venustus and being really excited when the bell jars showed up in the United States. This one stuck out in my mind. I didn't buy it there, but it's one I had remembered trying when it came time to start purchasing Lutens. I bought it from the Lutens website after they pulled out of the US. So why was this my first? Well, one, it was fairly safe because I remember it being a fairly simple and straightforward composition that I liked. So it wasn't a risky buy. And overall at the time, and still a little bit to this day, the Lutens aesthetic isn't always for me. I tend to not like the overly syrupy or complex or spicy fragrances from the house or in general. So I knew this was a safe buy, and it's just one out of the many that I had tried that stuck out in my mind that I had tested before they came out of the US. So we'll do just a quick little smell for today. There's really not a whole lot to say about it except the lavender used is very beautiful, very realistic and natural smelling, and the incense is not that heavy. I get sort of a clean white smoke that keeps the lavender from going down. It doesn't go down that sort of classic masculine, like Caron mixed with Tonka or like Chanel jersey. So I remember thinking this was one lavender I really liked. It has like a coldness to it, I think, from that incense. It does a little bit, maybe you just can't help this with lavender. I feel like invoke that kind of handsome masculine shaving foam type fragrance, but I really like that it's so simple and so spare. It's really like a really pared down minimal composition, but it's like just the right balance of notes. As simple as it might be, you can try many other lavenders and still never find something quite like it. The website lists lavender, incense, and amber notes. And it says, Encens et Lavande, a magnetic, fresh, and clear perfume in Serge Lutens flacon de table. And that's it. Like I said, not a whole lot to say. Good longevity. It'll give you like a handsome, clean smell. I really enjoy this fragrance. It's the kind of thing that I could easily wear every day, every weather. It works nicely, makes you feel fresh in the summer, but has enough kind of body to it to still work in the winter, especially with that incense. The only caveat I would say is it's not particularly incensey. I think if you smell it next to other lavenders, you can detect the incense more, but by itself, on its own, it's definitely not smoky. It's more just like, yeah, a very clear, pure white kind of whiff of smoke that to me really adds more of a coldness and a texture than a literal smell of incense. But really beautiful, kind of can't go wrong as long as you enjoy lavender with this one. So next up, this one was a blind buy, but I believe it was last summer or maybe 2 summers ago. I think 2 summers ago. I was really going through a jasmine obsession, and so I decided to pick up A La Nuit. Of the 2 jasmines in the bell jar, this one is described as the more green and fresh, whereas Encens is supposed to be more spicy and deep. I've never smelled Encens, but that's one that is high up on my list of bell jars that I would like to acquire eventually. When I purchased this, they were sending along the atomizer with it, which I wish was standard, but they seem to go in and out of promotion whether you get that or not with the bottle. So check your cart when you order. So this atomizer has A La Nuit. I did a video about this already, but it really is kind of the perfect reference jasmine. A lot of Lutens end up being the reference whatever note, and that's something that's really great about the brand. It does lean in the more sort of green and fresh side, but it still has a nice body to it. I will say the longevity isn't fantastic, but it's a wafter that it has a big, beautiful, luscious jasmine opening, but settles down pretty quickly within a few hours, but you'll still smell it throughout the day as a wafter, but you're not gonna get that big projection of the opening. So once again, not a whole lot to say. I feel like I can get almost the waxiness of the petals, like if you hold a white flower petal in your hand and sort of rub it, I get that sensation. A little bit of these green notes, Still a little bit of, I don't want to say indolic funk, but maybe a little bit of spice. Let's see what the website says. Yeah, they list jasmine, cloves, and white honey. Don't be scared of the honey. I tend to really not like honey in fragrances, and I find oftentimes even a dab of honey sticks out in a bad way to me. But I wouldn't have thought honey if I hadn't read that. Definitely cloves, yes, that's adding a little bit of that warmth and body, but a gorgeous springtime perfume. I'll still have to try Serge's, but at this point, it's either spend a kind of stupid amount of money on a little decant to try it, or just go on blind faith and blind buy, which is probably the way I'll go. At least with fragrances that I think based on the notes I can trust. More risky fragrances from Lutens, I would definitely try to buy a little decant or sample before purchasing. And finally, the most famous Lutens, probably Iris Silver Mist. I also did a video when I purchased this. This goes in and out of stock. Right now, it's in stock. And like these other three, there's a real theme here. I think that's partially because of the blind buy-ish nature of these, that I went with things that are not overly complex and I could sort of predict what they smell like when blind buying. So Iris Silver Mist, yes, it's a big, cold, rooty iris. I suppose my only take on it that might differ from others is I don't find it all that hard to wear. I've seen people say it's really, really difficult. They don't know when to use it. It is very cold. I think it's more the mood that makes it hard to wear. It's not a challenging scent. I suppose if you've never smelled iris or you don't like iris, it would be challenging, but it does have a cold, earthy rootiness. You might accuse it of being more of like a smell, like an olfactive art, than a perfume, because to me it doesn't wear all that perfumey, but I don't think it's a challenging smell. I think, yeah, any challenge about it is one of mood. It could have kind of a dour, depressing mood. It feels like it goes well with rain, but it almost complements, like if you want to lean into the grayness. And I think also because of that mid-tone, maybe finding the right weather. I'm very weather sensitive with what I wear. Can be difficult. Doesn't feel like it would be a good idea in summer. In winter, it's maybe a little bit too cold. Probably fall would be the perfect season, but any transitional kind of medium weather would work. Or just at home when you want to have a gorgeous smell experience. So again, it just smells like one thing. It smells like a rooty iris and not much else. There's actually a fairly long list of notes here on the website. Clove again, carrot seed, green notes, iris, floral notes, vetiver, amber, musky notes. Interesting. I've never heard about vetiver in this, and I wouldn't say I could pick it out. Musky notes, of course, yes. There's kind of a musky backdrop to everything extending it, but it is very linear. Some iris fragrances seem to just have a top note of ionones, of an irisy smell that quickly kind of poofs away. This really has that iris going all the way to the base, and it feels like it's the real deal iris, not just a fleeting top note. Again, all three of these have a similar tone in the way they wear, and this brings us to the good and the bad of the bell jars. Of course, the good is that they are really beautiful. They're really handsome little bottles. If I wasn't so psychotic about keeping my perfumes nice, they would be lovely as decorations for display, but I don't do that because of fear of sun damage on these. But the downside is I think these are mostly in bell jars because they are older fragrances. And on one side, I think it's great that Lutens doesn't really discontinue almost anything, but we have to pay the price, and understandably so, for them keeping such a huge catalog alive. I do think it's a worthy trade-off. I would rather they keep these fragrances in production, even if they make us pay a little more for them, than outright kind of pump and dump the way some other brands do. So that's the up and the down. But what I was going to say about that is they're not in the bell jar because that's an application method, particularly that makes sense with the fragrance. They're just there because they're older, iconic fragrances that have moved from the spray. So what I'm getting at is the problem with that is a little dab of some of these fragrances really isn't enough. And you either have to decant into a sprayer, although I think with Iris Silver Mist spraying might be a bit too much. Or some people use a pipette. I've done that as well to get in there without getting too much skin in. But what I'm getting at is I feel like this dabby application method from a jar could be quite a beautiful gesture if there were actual extrays, if the concentration of the perfume matched the application method, but it doesn't in this case. And I think that's a big downside of these. As you can see, they all look nearly full, and I feel like part of why I haven't worn them isn't because of the smell, it's just because of the application. When you're in a rush, it's just easier to grab a spray bottle. So it's the good and the bad of Lutens. Overall, I think it's a net good that we have these fragrances still in production and still in great shape to my nose. I did a comparison because I had several versions in sample form of Iris Silver Mist, and I truly could not tell a difference between them. So buy with confidence, I would say that these fragrances are still as great as they ever were. Unfortunately, they also raised in price just this year. Overall, Lutens has been fantastic. He's been an angel in not following the crazy sky-high trend upward of price increases every year. So it was a surprise to see a $20 increase. They were about $300 or $295 US, and now they are $320. But pretty much everything is available right now on the US website. Occasionally, they'll do discount codes. They did work for the bell jars once, many years ago. That's when I bought A La Nuit. But in recent years, it seems like the discounts have never applied to the bell jars. So what else can I say? Ones I'm still dying to try are La Mire, Encens, as previously mentioned. One I tried a dab at Aedis de Venustus was Bois de Sepia, and that has really bad reviews, people saying it smells like polo green, but I found it really interesting. They weren't selling the bottle, but they had a tester and they let me just smell it. So I'd like to revisit that one, but it's very expensive as a blind buy, so we got to find a way to try these things. The ones I have, I think were very safe and I'm extremely happy with them, but the ones that remain, I feel like I need to try before biting the bucket. So let me just have a quick look here, see if there's any other ones I can think of that are on my list that I'd love to smell. Saint Majeste La Rose, that sounds interesting. Some of these I have, some of them seem to have just recently been bell jarred. I've smelled Unleash when they were at Barney's. I have Datura Noir in a regular bottle. Yeah, for some reason Bois Sepia just still sticks in my mind. I want to try that. As well as Furrow Noir. Sometimes it's fun to dig through the old blogs because there was a really wonderful bloggy community that I think has kind of shifted to YouTube because I think writing is a lot of effort and doesn't get a lot of eyeballs the way YouTube does now. But anyway, I was reading some people who I really respect just raving about Furrow Noir, and I'm curious about it now. So those are my thoughts and the few bell jars that I have. Hope you enjoyed.